That's them. But we can go on to, like, you know, healing from friendships and stuff like that, because people always talk about romantic relationships, but I think that friendships have always hit deeper than like relationships. I don't know, there's like a certain bond or level you go through when you, like, let's say you've been friends with somebody for a minute, and then, like, let's say, God forbid, you guys are not friends anymore, and you guys have gone through like ups and downs and all of the above, and you're like, no. So that goes to say, like, what was one of like the worst friendship breakups that you've gone through?
Yeah, I agree that friendship breakups can feel a lot harder than because I think there's a certain level of depth that women have in friendships that you don't necessarily get at with men until maybe a little later on. But for me, I definitely had my fair share of friendship breakups per se, but I think in hindsight, a lot of it was just us growing up and having different priorities, different values, different hobbies. I think, fortunately, I feel like a lot of my experiences have just been, we just grew apart. There's no hate, no animosity. It's just, we're not what we once were. I know I've changed a lot over time. People have changed a lot over time. I don't think anything is wrong with either party. I just don't think people's lives mesh as well when they're younger. Because me, when I was, I don't know, 20, 21, is, although it was only
it just
several years ago, I look back and I'm like, I am just not that person anymore. My priorities and mindset and outlook on life is so much different. But I think a handful of those moments also happened when I was just going through really tough situations in life. I've always been that friend that is very much so the giver, and always having so much to give everyone, trying to make sure that everyone is good. And there were points in my life where I had literally nothing to give anyone else. Like, life was rough. And in those moments, not saying that friendship has to be reciprocal, because I think there are seasons where people need you more than others. It's not always going to be 50-50 or you know, whatever the case is. But I think there are certain seasons in life where it's just unexplainable. Like, you expect support from people that you call your friends, and when you don't receive it in the way that you expect, and I'm not talking about acquaintances, I'm talking about like deep friendships, it's disappointing. And I think for me, it was a wake-up call of, okay, maybe we do have different priorities, or maybe I prioritize this friendship more than you, but now I have to stand up for myself, and I know that I deserve friends that are willing to step up for me. And a lot of people surprised me and did step up in ways that I couldn't even imagine, that I never asked for. But it was just like, okay, let's like reevaluate what's going on here. And again, no hatred towards people. I just think it's just, it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. And in hindsight, I feel like maybe that's the way God intended it for it to be. And I'm so fortunate and grateful for my circle today. I'm just like, wow, God is good. God is great. God is great, because the people that show up today, who check up on me today, my friends today, it could get me a little emotional. Like, they're just such great people, and I love all of them so dearly. But friendship breakups, they're hard. They're hard, especially in the beginning, or if it feels like, because I think sometimes too, I've been like, was I too harsh? Did I cut them off, so to speak, without giving them a chance? And I've had conversations like that, and I've had to realize, no, like it is what it was. What about you, friendship breakups wise?
Before I talk about me, I do want to say, like, that is hard when you do give and give and give and give and give, and like you said, nothing's 100%, nothing's 50-50 and stuff like that, because, you know, you give it's similar to a relationship. You give 100 and 100. You give what you can to the person gives what they can to you, depending on their circumstances or life. Things happen. Like, we're not all in kindergarten, just like ring around rosy, having a good time 24/7. Like, you know, life happens, and like life be life, and like health excuse me, mentally, physically, emotionally, so on and so forth. So I think that is important for them to also understand, like, hey, if you have a friendship that like you feel like you're constantly pouring into but you're getting nothing in return, like you're celebrating all of their milestone and life events and so on and so forth, and they can't make it for anything for you, not even making the effort, because you know, like sometimes you can't come to everything because we're, again, people have lives and everything. It's not as open free schedule as like maybe undergrad and like high school and stuff like that. But if you're always making the effort, you're always pushing, you're always trying, and you don't see anything on the other end, and let's say you try to have a conversation like, hey, I just really need support right now, like I can't do this, and it's like no sacrifice, no nothing. Again, you have to like speak of your needs too, because people, I think we've said this in another episode, people can't read minds. So if you're feeling unsupported, you should definitely speak up. If you feel like something's lacking in the friendship that you really need, because you know we have different love languages, different attachment styles, so on and so forth, then you should speak up and say it. But if you're being vocal and you're making it known that I need this from you right now, or I'm having a hard time and like I need X, Y, and Z, and they're kind of just like, you're fine, or like they're just not giving it to you when you always try your hardest to be there for them in the way that you can, then maybe you should reevaluate the friendship, because you deserve a friendship where it's you're reciprocating the support that you need from each other. And if you can't, being vocal and being able to communicate about those things. So I just thought that was like a really good point about giving and taking. It's not about, oh, like I paid for you this dinner and you're gonna pay for it. It's not about that. I feel like in most female friendships, it's like we want emotional support and just having someone to talk to and just having someone to communicate and laugh and so on and so forth. Me personally, I don't believe in the fun friend and then this is a, I don't know, this friend and this is like that friend and stuff like that. I think there are there may be like you'll have more fun with a friend. Yeah, like in specific aspects. Like let's say I really like going to musicals and this other friend really likes going to musicals and we go to musicals, you know what I'm saying? Or it's like gym, like I really like going to this gym, this other person does. It's like, okay, lovely, but not necessarily like cordial. It's like, oh, I only can have fun with you, but I can't like communicate with you. Like or like I only can like communicate with you, but like we can't go out in public because like it's whatever. Anyways, all in all, you should have a relationship and a friendship where things are reciprocal and like you have a couple people where all encompassing, they accept you and you can work with each other and love one another, and just have a good relationship without having doubts or like having a bunch of passiveness and Sure. So I just wanted to say all that. But in terms of a friendship breakup, I think the one I like went through that was a little bit tough for me. It was like, we were like so close. We're like really, really close, and like went out with each other, sleepovers, all of the above, like literally the whole shebang. If you watch PBS Kids, like it was like a whole PBS Kids friendship and everything. And it ended up not working out because of something like minuscule and small. It was like I was similar to what you were saying. I was constantly giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and then in the one time I couldn't give, it was like, oh, you're done. Like they just completely ghosted me and stopped talking to me. So I was just like, what the hell? But again, similar to what I said in the last episode, I'm not an ipav. I'm not going to crawl and try to beg. I don't beg for nobody. Like it is what it is. I was kind of just like, this hurts a lot, and I'm gonna heal through it with music. I'm gonna heal through it with like talking to a friend or two, or me just journaling, writing. Like I'm gonna get through this, and this is like really breaking me right now, but at the end of the day, if you made the decision to end this and cut it off because of something so small, not only does it say something about you, but it says something about our friendship. So that was really hard. But and then afterwards, you know, got older and everything, and we rekindled it for a little bit, but more on like an acquaintance level or whatever. And then they ended up like calling me out of my name and like like a bunch of other stuff over their relationship, because it was, but my thing is that I'm very true to myself. So if I don't believe you're in a situation that is healthy for you, I will say it. Like I know some people like, oh, like, you know, it's none of my business, so on and so forth. But if I see you're blatantly sharing with me that somebody's treating you wrong and doing you dirty and all the, I will literally say like, I don't think this person is for you. I think that you can do better. I think you should
hear that.
I don't think they were in the space here, but I said it for years. Like I continuously said it over and over and over. So when the time came where they were calling me out of my name and like attacking me and so on and so forth about, they're like, oh, I heard that you were talking about my significant other. And my response was essentially, I said all of that to your face, like literally. So there was no, oh, I'm like saying you're so cute together, and I was going behind their back and like, no, everything was said to their face. So I was kind of just like, if you just didn't want to talk to me, you could have simply just said you didn't want to talk to me, and it just like turned into other stuff. But ultimately, yeah, that, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just incompatibility. I don't know what it was. If it was just, maybe you just wanted to take and take and take, but you weren't willing to like give anything. I'm not sure. But ultimately, that hurt a lot.
I can imagine.
Yeah, like the first time around. The second time around, I was kind of just like, you were an acquaintance at this point. It was just like, I can be cordial, civil, so on and so forth. But when it just ended up, I was like, okay, whatever. So,
oof.
Yeah.
And in those moments, I'm sure it doesn't feel salvageable.
Yeah.
Like you could even go remotely back to where you used to be. And that takes another level to even forgive, even though you're not. I've learned to forgive people even if we're not friends anymore.
Exactly.
I forgive you, I wish well for you, but this is not gonna work. And maybe that sounds like one of those situations where we just cannot go back.
100%. It's like, you
Calling
can't go back.
Name, that's so disrespectful.
And I was just so lost. I'm like, what? Like, you know how you open your phone, you're like, wait, what's going on? It was so random. Like, it wasn't even like, it was like a conversation, then this transformed, like something was addressed and then something transformed into something else. It was more like, I was just, hey, again, at the acquaintance stage, it was just like, hey, like, I'm just checking in on this. It wasn't even like, oh, we were communicating on a regular basis anymore. It was just, it was something with like student involvement, like on campus and everything. And it was just, and we were working together. So it was like, okay, like, hey, I just checked in a couple months ago about this. What's going on? No response. And then months later, I responded. I was like, hey, like the time's coming up for this. Like, hey, like what's going on? And then I got like a message from a friend saying like, oh, this person's upset with you or whatever. And I was like, I had no idea this person.
What happened?
I was like, what? And literally, I'm like, I don't even know what happened. So I reached out again. I was like, oh, I heard that you were upset, and then boom, calling on me out my name and like going off and so on and so forth. And I'm just like, huh? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?
They were waiting for that moment.
Yeah, like they were waiting for the moment, and then
now's the time.
They're like, all right, now's the time to come for you. And I was kind of just like, why can't we just talk about this like normal people without this turning into something explosive? You know what? I'm kind of proud of myself for that. Like, I didn't blow up or come at them or anything. I was kind of just like,
it's maturity.
Yeah, like what?
Well, yeah.
I was like, what is this? Like, what's going on? So
just confusion.
Just come, like, I promise you, it was just straight confusion. I was like, where's this coming from? What's going on?
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
Like you said, I wish them the best. Like, there's no hate, animosity, so on and so forth. I am not going to harp over that situation. When they say when something small happens and it blows everything up, it just wasn't meant to be. And I was like, yeah, like, it's fine or whatever. And I just learned from that, similarly, that you give, you take, and if you have a friendship where you can't talk through things, you can't talk through the hard things, then you won't be able to hold like a healthy and sustainable relationship. Because similar to Stacy and Izzy, not to go back to them, but things can be fun and everything, but if you can't talk about any problems or conflicts, you're not going to go very far in the friendship, because you're different, you have different values. Shoot, even siblings like don't get along 24/7. They grew up in the same household, so on and so forth. So it's just important to, you know your worth and know your values, and if it's not working with someone, not losing yourself to like keep a connection with somebody else.
Exactly.
And yeah, you did share a little bit about like natural friendship breakups. So I guess on my end, I don't have a lot of those, but I have had like things where I've spoken to people and we were hanging out a lot and everything, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, like, we're texting less, we're talking less and everything, and then months go by and I'm like, oh snap, like I haven't heard from this person in a while, but there's no hate, there's no animosity, there's no nothing. It's just like, oh, like, let me reach out and see if they're free for coffee or whatever. Whereas before it was like, we're close friends, and now it's like, oh, more acquaintances. Yeah. And I guess it depends on, because sometimes you get closer to other people and you might bond with others and you don't feel it as much, but I'm sure that it can be tough if like you're really close to somebody and that's like one of your closest friends, and then like slowly it dissipates and you're just like, wait, like what's going on? So I think that's like a whole other layer too that we
Yeah.
can talk about in another episode. But
Yeah, it's just like a romantic breakup, honestly.
yeah.
Especially if y'all spend time together or are constantly talking to one another, that transitional period can be hard. But I think once you get over that hump
Yeah.
and heal, similar to that of a romantic breakup, it's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you get
You'll get through it.
If
You're going through it, you'll get through it.
You definitely will. It might not feel like you're gonna get through it.
You're gonna get through.
But it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, what tips would you give to those who are going through a friendship breakup right now?
I have so many tips. I had to put pen to paper for this one, y'all, so that I didn't miss any of my tips for you guys. So my first one is don't ruminate on it. Like, feel the emotions and let it go. Because I think oftentimes we just ruminate on things to the point where sometimes you'll ruminate on all the good memories and seem to just remember the good ones, forget the not so great ones. And there has to be a balance of both of, oh, I appreciate those positive memories, and also the ones that weren't great, they were pretty bad and I learned from them. So don't ruminate too much on those thoughts, because it's just not helpful in you trying to get over it in general.
Yeah, that's hard. It's true not to just remember, because it happens all the time. You think of just the good times and happy stuff, and then it's just like, wait, let's pause and remind ourselves how we got here in the first place, which is so true.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is to do things that you enjoy, tap into your hobbies, self-care. Just pour all that extra love and energy back into yourself, because especially during a breakup, it can feel like you're very drained, and especially if that's someone that you spend a lot of time with, now there's almost as though there's a void in your time. So it's like you want to fill those back up with things that you enjoy and spending time with other people.
Yeah, spend time with other people that make you happy, and not just kind of isolating yourself completely and going in a corner and just like, I don't know, just just dissociating and just like trying to get your mind off of everything. That's not healthy. So
I think it can be helpful at first, but not for an elongated period of time.
Yeah,
it's okay to let the emotions out, because I've also seen people not let the emotions out and then they end up hurting other people or themselves. So let the emotions out, just don't sit in it for months on end.
Yeah,
I think some days, maybe like a week.
Spend some time to yourself,
cry
to
it
reflect.
out.
Yes, cry it out, isolate a little bit, but don't spend 6 months doing that, or it's not going to be good for you. And true, feel your emotions. I know it's easy. What do people do now? You know, people just take ashwagandha and just like it numbs your
Really?
Ashwagandha, like they say, if you take it like all the time, it kind of numbs your emotions.
Ooh.
So I mean, in a sense where like you just don't feel
them.
You don't feel them.
That's not great. We don't want to do that.
Yeah,
but we do want to like feel our emotions out a little bit, at least. Even for myself, what I've done before. I mean, I used to be really dramatic. I would put on like my breakup playlist.
It is what it is.
And I would just cry it out, sing those lyrics like none other. You know, stare out the window like I'm in a music video.
Yep, as you should.
Just really dramatic, but that helps me get over it. And then after that cry session, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, it works. You gotta get your
move
inner
on.
Usher out, feel me? Like, let it burn.
It's very therapeutic. It's very, very therapeutic. I know some people enjoy writing or working out or other things to get that energy and those emotions out. It's important to just let it out.
Yeah.
More than anything. This kind of ties into the first one, but just reflect on and learn from the experience. It happened for a reason. The breakup happened for a reason. It's no good if you don't learn from that and you end up just repeating it, the cycle over again. So just learn from it and reflect on it in a way in which you can grow from it, for sure.
Exactly.
And when you're feeling ready and healed, open yourself back up to either new friendships or new relationships. I think that's important too, but only when you're ready. I think that's really important too. And not to just jump into something that you're not genuinely ready for.
Yes, I think people always say this in terms of like just romantic relationships, but especially in friendship breakups, like you don't want somebody who's like genuine and like ready to like throw themselves in and give and all these other things, and you're in this point where you're completely emotionally turned off, not ready to speak to anyone, and you're just like, yeah, like you're treating them badly because you're just emotionally turned off, and then they keep giving, and maybe they try to like work and heal and so on and so forth, thinking it's their fault when it's a you thing, and you don't want to be doing what somebody just did to you. So it's true, make sure you heal, make sure you're open for space for a friendship. And if you're not, I'm not saying say that, nobody wants to hear, hey, I'm not ready for a friendship right now. Like, that's so weird. I don't think you should do that. But I do think that you should say, maybe say just personally, like, I'm not in a good space right now. Or just say like, I'll like just, how do I explain this? Like, I'm not in a space to be a dedicated friend right now. Because I'm going through a lot or whatever. Or if somebody is trying to like, you know, constantly go out and everything, keep them company. But if you're not in a space or have the capacity to hang out with them 2-3 days a week, 5 days a week, or like constantly and all the time, only make plans with the person or speak to the person, whether it's texting, calling, so on and so forth, when you're in a space where you can be nice, where you can come correct, because whatever you went through has nothing to do with them. So if you're not in the space, just make sure that you're only giving when you can. And then in that case, if they're looking for someone who's more like high maintenance, where it's like all the time they need to hang out and everything, or they're looking for somebody to like really bond with and be close with, then they'll already be able to tell that like, all right, like this person can't like hang out at the frequency or talk at the frequency or do these things right now, like, so I am not going to put the expectation, as opposed to, okay, they want to hang out 4 days a week, I'm gonna hang out with them 4 days a week, but I'm completely checked out. So just doing what you can, essentially.
And I think there are levels to transparency too, because you could be getting to know a new friend and there are certain parts of that friendship that you're not ready for in depth. And I know early on in our friendship, we also had some conversations like that where I've expressed to you, hey, I am interested in doing this thing, but let me be honest with you, I had an experience where I felt really burned and I'm not in that space yet. And you were so patient with me and you were like, okay, well, when you get to that space, I'm gonna be here. And you kind of supported me through that, but I felt like me being transparent with you was helpful for our friendship, rather than me just not investing in that part. And you're kind of like, okay, what did I do there? So I think that was helpful in our friendship too. And now we got to a point where now we can do those things. Yeah. But it took time for me to heal. It's like, although I was ready to dabble in certain areas of our friendship, I was like, this area, I need a little time, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I think that's real too, and that's what I'm saying. I always appreciate transparency and just communication, because I'd rather someone say, hey, I can't do this, as opposed to, I'm just not gonna say anything, or I'm gonna say yes and like actually not do anything. Because it's true, like I've always been the person where it's just like, all right, I believe in something, I believe that like, you know, this can work out great together, and I recognize that like, you know, you're not in a good space. So if I have to take on like a good amount of work or a good amount of stuff to start off with, for example, just so that you can kind of like get transition back into it, then that's completely fine. It didn't turn out like that. I was completely ready. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna take all the work, you know what I'm saying? You just need to show up and talk, you're good. So I really appreciate that, like you were saying that you're like, nah, like I'm gonna like put in work too, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. And like you said, there are other projects and other things that we want to do like right off the bat, but it's like, you know what, let's just wait a little bit for us to jump into it once things kind of slow down a bit. So communicate, it makes everything better at the end of the day.
Exactly. And then my last two are forgive not only them, but also forgive yourself. Because I think in my experiences, sometimes I felt guilty of, how did I not see all of those red flags or all of those experiences, or just overlook them? So it took some time to forgive myself of, okay, you experienced that, it's okay. Now you know the red flags for the next time and you can do better. So forgiving myself was also really big in my healing process too. And appreciate the good times. Yes, appreciate the good times. I have such fond memories of people, and I appreciate them. I don't look at them angrily. I'm like, that was such a beautiful time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay too, to appreciate what it was.
That's true. Appreciate the good memories, because like, although I'm not friends with like some people anymore, or we're not as close, we had some funny times, like hilarious times. I think about it, I'm like even laughing right now. I'm like, yo, that was like really funny when that happened, or that was like a really great memory. And I can tell, like, honestly, if I saw them, I would be willing to say hi or whatever, like, with a couple people. There's no animosity. It's just like, this didn't work out. Sometimes you were a kid even. Sometimes, like, you were just not in a good spot. And ultimately, it's like, you know, this just didn't work out, and that's okay, and I wish you the best. You don't need to hold hate and animosity for the rest of your life because something happened. God knows who went. Like, I know, because, like, there have been people who have done me crazy dirty, but even now, I'm just like, I don't know what was going on with you, but that had nothing to do with me, and you unfortunately had to, like, project that onto me, and that's why you hurt me to that extent. But that had nothing to do with me. Like, that was your own stuff too. And like you were saying before, there was a point you were saying, like, not like forgiving yourself and also forgiving the person. And it's like, think about this too. You probably done things that, like, you know, rubbed them the wrong way and everything. Like, we also are not trying to encourage victim mentality. Like, oh, it's always the other person that's wrong. It's always, maybe, yeah, sometimes it's us. Like, maybe you did if you're on the other end of it, you're not the one who's cutting them off or whatever. Maybe you're just, they cut you off and you don't know why, or you didn't have that conversation. Like, maybe, there's so many possibilities if the person doesn't communicate, but it could be a thing where maybe, like, you did something wrong to them and it really rubbed them the wrong way, and they're so offended that they don't even want to talk about it, and you thought this was just, like, normal, and maybe it was just they have other priorities now, and, like, they just can't focus on you as much or at the, like, same extent it was before. Like, we don't know, sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't, but ultimately, like, reflect on yourself too. Like, maybe I could have done this better, maybe they could have done that better, that's why we're not friends. And not beating yourself up, but also remember to take accountability, because you're not always right. I'm not always right. You can be wrong. We can all work through things. We can learn to be a better friend in other facets and everything. Yeah, like, I've grown and improved so much since I was, like, a kid to now, like, in ways of treating people and everything. So
and that's through experience.
Exactly.
Through experience. Question for you though, do you feel as though you need to get closure from whether friendship breakups or romantic relationships? Do you believe in getting closure?
Okay, this is tough because
a can of worms.
No, it's a good question, but it's tough because in romantic relationships, again, it's been, like, far and few between, but in the short
She's been locked in for a while, y'all.
Yeah, like, in the short instances I was in other relationships, I was able to get closure. So, and I think it did help a lot, but even if I didn't get it, I think I was fine because I was still going through my own healing process and stuff like that. It wasn't like, until I find out the reason why, like, I'm not going to heal. In friendships, it can be hard because I've been ghosted my fair share of times, you know what I'm saying? And you're kind of just like, what did I do? Like, what's going on or whatever? So closure, it does help sometimes. And, like, I've gone through, like, you just reach your own conclusions, but I think ultimately you shouldn't, if you can get closure and, again, communicate and have a conversation so that you both can try to, like, you know, figure it out, great. I know that there's kind of a memo where it's like, you should have known what you did, and, like, you should, but I don't believe in that either. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you can get closure, great, but don't expect that you're gonna get closure, because a lot of the time in life circumstances you don't, and you need to be able to heal and move on without having closure, because, like, it's really not guaranteed most of the time. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. How about you?
You know, I feel similarly. I don't necessarily feel as though I seek closure, but sometimes when I'm initiating something, I feel obligated to give the person closure and explain why I feel the way that I do. I know that's not an obligation, but I feel like I need to do that. But when it comes to receiving it, I don't think, the one thing I do need is clarity on, is this happening? Like, is it, are we actually not continuing this romantic relationship? Are we not continuing this friendship? I think there are some circumstances where not so much, where I'm like, I don't feel like I needed that clarity or closure. But I think in some situations I feel like I needed the clarity on, is this happening or is this not? But not necessarily the why. I don't need to know.
Really?
If you want to share why, because most times I don't feel as though it had anything to do with me.
That's interesting though. Like, if it's romantic, like, yeah, 100%. It's like, all right, are we doing this or not? Like 100%. But I'm not sure about the friendship one, because sometimes it's like you feel it kind of fading, or like it's an abrupt stop, or like, okay, if something big doesn't happen, I feel like for the people that kind of like vanish slowly, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of implied that we're not that close anymore. Not that we hate each other, but
right. And in those situations, I don't feel like I needed closure.
Okay.
I was just like, okay, we're not doing.
So like, in what situations would you need like clarity that your friends are not?
Of why my friends don't want to be friends with me anymore?
Yeah, or like you feel them like distance, and like what, like in what circumstances would you know that you need to say like, oh, like, are we still friends or not? Because that's what I'm thinking of right now.
Oh, when I think of closure, I think of you explaining to me why you don't want to either be in a relationship with me or in a friendship with me, right?
Have you told them that before? Like, you told somebody like you asked somebody like, yo, why don't you want to be friends with me anymore?
I don't think I ever have.
Okay.
That's what I think of. What am I not understanding closure?
No, Neil.
Wait.
No, because you said
closure is when you ask someone like why.
Yeah, why something happened. But when you say clarity, like, would you ever reach out to a friend that you feel like is distancing and be like, yo, why aren't we close anymore?
I said that to people.
For real?
I've been like, oh, I feel like we're growing apart. What happened there?
Oh, okay. How did that go? Because I've never done that.
That happened with actually one friend that I feel like we were getting distant, and they took it really well. And they were like, I feel the same way. How can we fix that?
Oh, wow.
So it depends on the person. It depends on the situation. But I feel like in a lot of circumstances, I feel like I overshare and explain why I feel as though.
In that case, like, I know that you're saying like oversharing and stuff like that, but I feel like if you're trying to talk through how you're feeling and why you're going through it essentially, and why you want to like speak to them through it, I don't think you're oversharing. Like, you're literally just trying to talk through an issue in the best way that you can. So if you're trying to work through a specific friendship and you're sharing like a lot about how you're feeling and everything, that's not oversharing. That's definitely just like talking through.
Yeah,
like,
but I also feel like I didn't owe some people an explanation.
I see what you're saying.
You know what you did.
Stop, not that
you know what you did.
Let's speak on that a little bit.
Let me explain how what you did made me feel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more so.
Okay, like, how do you feel about the you know what you did type thing? Because like, I'm kind of like 50-50 in terms of that. Like, I'm not sure, because I feel like it's tough, because when people say, oh, you know what you did, there's a layer of you know what you did me dirty, so on and so forth, and the person does know, and then there's another layer, no, they do know, and then they gaslight you, like, no, you're interpreting it the wrong way, and then there's another layer of like, you know what you did and I'm gonna cut you off, and they really don't think like it was that deep. So like, how do you just differentiate between like, they know what they did, I'm not saying anything, versus like, let's try to talk through it?
I think if they're open and wanting to have a conversation with you, and when I say you know what you did, it's not in an accusatory way, it's just an obvious, this thing happened.
Okay.
It was uncomfortable. I'm sure we both know that it was uncomfortable. I don't know how you feel about it. I do, and I also want to give people, I also oftentimes try and give people the benefit of the doubt of, this X, Y, and Z happened. What was going through your head and your experience at the time that led to you reacting to the situation in that way? Because sometimes people are going through really rough times too. So I also try and give people the benefit of the doubt.
That's true.
So I think opening it up in that way of, you know what you did.
Okay.
Or you know what happened, essentially opens up a conversation for what went wrong. Like, what did you feel as though maybe you could have done better? What do I feel like I could have done better? Okay. And in most situations for me, it's like I could have spoken up. Okay. I could have communicated more. So it's like, so it's not just on that person in particular, but it is an underlying, we know X, Y, and Z happened. Okay. Why aren't we talking about it? It happened. I know what happened.
So it's not like because this is what I've seen examples of, like, you know what you did on TikTok, maybe they just completely ruined what that means. It's like, they're like, you know what you did, I'm blocking, deleting, ghosting, gone.
Oh,
like, you know
I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, they're like, you know what you did.
I don't think that's fair. That's very accusatory.
Yeah.
And also assumes that people know the depth of the impact that it had on you.
Exactly.
Because someone can do something and think that they had no harm, no ill intent, no impact on you. And you're like, you know what you did. And they're like, I know what I did, but I didn't know that it hurt you in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's true, because we all have different boundaries and stuff like that. So I know that that's tough. And differentiating between, should I address it? Are we growing up? Okay, should I address this for us to work through it? And then it's like, are we just distancing from each other because we have different values, so on and so forth? And we should just let it happen naturally. And then there's a layer of like, you did something crazy. And it's like, I feel so disrespected. I don't feel like I can trust you or have that level of friendship again. Like there's so many, that's why I say like friendship breakups are worse, because there's so many more layers to what it can be. Because it could be one or all of those that you need to talk and work through and just deciphering whether you want to make that change or not to, which is hard.
It is. It's really hard. And I think sometimes too, I lost my train of thought. Whoa.
No, it be like that.
It'll come back to me at some point.
No, I get that 100%. Like my train of thoughts be just leaving everything. But
I was on a roll. I really thought I was going somewhere with that.
We're human. It just proves that we're human. But like, yeah, all in all, friendship breakups are hard. Friendship breakups are not easy. They're complicated, they're nuanced, and you're not wrong for feeling like you're going through a hard time because you don't have this close friend or person in your life anymore. I know that people like to emphasize just romantic, but friendships really can hurt at a different level than like romantic relationships, because that person could have been your sister. Like that's like your brother. Like that's somebody so close to you. Yeah. And when all of a sudden it's like we had full access to each other. I shared like a piece of my soul with you, and now it's just like, oh, that's it, done. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's hard.
So we're here for you. We're praying for you.
We are.
So
that's another thing in healing too. Prayer.
Yes, pray.
Really gets me through, and I think that ties to just the healing yourself in general.
Yeah.
Tapping into those resources.
Pray through it. You don't need to go through it all by yourself too. For those who are like Christian and stuff like that, like pray through it, ask God to give you strength on some days. You need to call out at work. It's not just a romantic relationship. You need a mental health day, call out if you're going through something hard, even if it's like a friendship breakup. So thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and share with a friend who would like this content. Thank you.
Bye y'all.
Bye.